rest of your SPE breaks, let me know. All right, I'm probably going to just cut all this beginning part out and just keep talking for a few minutes. So, for loops. They're kind of like while loops, except they have extra parts. Now, hopefully you're remembering that a while loop, if while some condition is true, do this stuff. You have the word while, you got a condition, and inside the body, you have a change, right? Because you have to, get more input from the user or change the count. That changes the different values, right? And actually execute it. Otherwise, you have to call it infinite loop. Now, here's what happens with with one of these for loops. There's actually a few different pieces to it. The first one that you'll see is different is the word for. The next thing is this declaration and initialization. You see, for loops allow you to actually make the variable you're going to use right here. They have their initialization declaration, they have their condition, and they have their change. That plus I makes I go up by 1. So that way, when you run it, and it's just going to be this first one here, it goes starting at 0. As long as I is less than 5, it keeps doing whatever is in here. I'm going to move this onto the same line so it's a little easier to read. But guys, can you see how that ends up working to make these 0 through 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Got it? Any questions on that so far? So this is where the strength of for loops lies as opposed to while loops. While loops are great when you don't know how many times it's going to run. You keep going as long as the player is guessing. You keep going as long as this, as long as that. You're always going on an uncountable, undecidable sort of thing. But this is pretty much decided. 0 through 5. 0 is the lower bound, 5 is the upper bound, and we're doing exclusive bounds. And again, what does it mean that we have an exclusive bound? What does that mean? Does not include which boundaries? Matthew. What is it? Yeah, it does not include the 5s. Exclusive bounds meaning it doesn't include the bigger one. So it's just those, 0 through 4. The opposite of that uses less than or equal to and makes it with inclusive bounds, including the 5. So can you guys see the difference between, well, can you guys just see how to use the for loop? That's a little different than you Python people are used to, and this is why I wanted to show it to you also on Friday, because you're used to the for each loop, or I in range 7 through 29, something like that. You're used to the really nice one from Python. This is the less nice one from C and Java, and a bunch of others. It's pretty nice because you're able to actually make an integer right here. Now here's the thing. If I were to make a new integer, x, instead of equal to I, do you know what value x would be right here at this line?
Is it 4 because that's the last one?
So 4, you might think, guys, it is because that's the last one. But it's this. No, it's an error. Here's the thing. You make a variable in one method, right? And it only exists in that method. Same thing with for loops. I make it in the for loop, it only exists in the for loop. I does not exist outside of that for loop. So I'm not able to use it. Technically, you would be right. It would go up to 4, plus 1 go up to 5, check 5, and then exit. So if you wanted it right here, somehow, it would be 5. Or if we had made I already exist up here, and just simply initialize it there, which is something else we're allowed to do, and we're going to ignore that problem till later. If I were to do that, and then print it out, x or I, either one, you would see that you guys were correct that x would be 5. That's it right there. You can see that clearly because I can add in a space beforehand. You can now see it's the one with the space there. So yeah, and you'll see this in the AP exam, if you declare it before the for loop, then yeah, it'll exist after the for loop and it'll be 5. It'll be 1 higher than the last value it was. But if you don't declare it beforehand, it only exists within the for loop. Are there questions on that? The reason why I do that is because I don't do print line in the environment. Instead, I want all my data on one nice little line. Now, if I were to go and just print it out as is with just I, that would look like that, and that's not really clean, especially if I'm up through 10 through 55. It's kind of impossible to tell where one number begins and where the next one ends, right? Or, whatever way of saying that actually made sense. So instead, what I had to do was add in a space. And with that space, now it becomes readable. Just because now there's a space in between each number, and it goes all the way up to 15. So that's why the practice environment has the I plus that, and that allows you to look at the output and figure out pretty quickly what are your bounds. It would be iterations exclusive or iterations inclusive, either from last week or this week. Then it'd be on last week. So.
Oh, never mind. So, inclusive was investigating.
Yeah.
If you finish practical environment,
If you finish, the next thing would be the table print. But here it is. So, is there any questions? You'll see. Are there any questions on for loops? Start at any value, ended at any value. If you have a nonsensical boundary like equals 55 is less than 10, it will just never run because it's never true. You guys got it? Yes. Yeah, so if we had, let's say int x equals 10, and did while x is less than 55, and then printed it out, yeah, that would be the same thing. And you'll see that right here. It'll start on the same line. Oh yeah, whoops. You're right, I need to plus it. So yeah, I'm doing my change there. And that is how it is similar to the while loop. There it is right there. So yeah, it's basically, you can do the same thing as the while loop. It's just it's better suited for it. This reads a lot easier than this. And so we prefer to use the while loop for any countable loops. And then the for loop for any countable loops, and the while loop for any uncountable loops where we don't know how long it will go on for. Okay, are there any questions before we go into this break condition right here? Just one last command I want you to get before we go on. Any questions? All right, so let's break. Here it is. Let's say we took for loop. Lower bound is what? 0. Upper bound is, everyone? Is it exclusive or inclusive? Inclusive. Is there any confusion on why it's inclusive? Anyone at all? Okay, yeah, because it includes 100, because it's less than or equal to 100. So it should include 100. Now, so we would expect 0 through 100, right? On each line. But this break thing stops us. Here it is, 0 through 100, but it stops at 17. And it's this if I equals 17, then break thing that makes that happen. Break says stop the loop. It just stops it immediately. Doesn't do anything other than just stop it. There is a, depending on what you want to call it, brother or sister or cousin command called continue, which will do something similar, which it just skips that value. So it would skip 17. Well, it would skip one of them. Oh, you know what? No, it wouldn't skip anything because it's at the end of the loop. I'd have to put it beforehand. Then it would skip it because when it got to 17, it would just continue and skip that. But for break, the one I really want you to get today, it'll stop the loop immediately. So right there, with it stopping at 17, our output stops at 17. Does that make sense how to use break inside a for loop? Yeah, it's a lot like return, but only for inside the loop. Because if I write return here, I accept the method. And that just crashes into the whole program. Or at least, in this case it does, because I'm in main. Return will just exit the program. But break here just ends that loop. So maybe this is like you're stuck there and you're like, I want to end it, but I don't have an easy way of ending this loop. So how do I do it? That's an easy way of ending the loop. You just need to like jump out real quick. It's not that common, and if you don't like break, it actually won't show up on the AP exam. But it's a pretty useful concept to have as a computer scientist anyway. No, it's you might as well know it. Okay, so are there any questions on for, inclusive, exclusive, or break? Ladies and gentlemen, and I believe I'm finished with you.